Good morning and welcome to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for February 8th, 2018. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff on the left of the dais. We would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 through 3 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. If any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision. The Rapid City Plan, no, we don't have any that are final. Any items to remove? Planning Commission? Item number 2. Would the audience like to remove 1 or 3? Seeing none, nobody looking for that, I'd look for a motion to approve items 1 and 3.
So move.
Karen made the motion. Mike seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 2.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Jevon, if he would, just give a presentation so I understand what they're doing out there. Thanks.
Item 18 RZ006 is a proposed rezoning from a commercial district to a public district. Public districts are facilities which generally serve the public, and they're not free of commerce. You can see the area is currently zoned general commercial, all in this area right in here. It's the area that we're looking at. Here's an aerial view of the properties right here. Currently, what's there is the Pennington County offices, including the courthouse and the jail, and the Rapid City Police Department. This is the future land use map. You can see part of this area is looking to be public, as part of it as in the downtown area, so it does abut a future public area in the future on this map. Looking at that, excuse me. Looking at the major street plan, you can see that St. Joseph Street is a principal arterial, and 1st and 4th Street and Kansas City streets are commercial streets. This is looking northwest at the property, looking west on Kansas City Street, looking north on 1st Street, looking at the Pennington County Administration Building, at the currently existing parking structure, looking north on 2nd Street. You can see the Pennington County Jail and the public safety buildings. Looking north on 4th Street, looking east on Kansas City Street, looking northeast at the courthouse, looking east on St. Joseph Street, looking south on 4th Street, looking south on 2nd Street, looking west on St. Joseph Street, southwest at the buildings, and looking south on 1st Street. The proposed rezone from general commercial to public district is the appropriate zoning for the current land uses that are already occupying this area. The property abuts St. Joseph Street, which is a arterial street and a revitalization corridor. The proposed rezoning supports development in this mixed-use corridor. Letters have been sent out, and there's been no indication that this use will hurt the area. The proposal is in compliance with the future land uses for this area and with the city's comprehensive plan. Staff recommends that this rezone be approved.
Yeah, Vicki.
If I might also add, so currently, obviously, the courthouse and the Pennington County Administrative Offices are allowed in their current zoning designation. It's the jail that becomes the tricky component. It currently would not be allowed to expand its legal nonconforming as it stands today. The county is looking at doing some renovation projects within that area of the use that would improve services for the jail. And in doing so, we met with representatives from the county and advised that really zoning their whole campus to public would allow them that flexibility then to make those changes, not only to those other uses, but the jail as well. And that's the reason why we see the whole campus as public. Based on the public that you rezoned on the property south of this last year, this is an extension of that campus setting for the county, and with that, we are recommending to approve.
Thank you. Okay. Karen made the motion to approve item 2. Is there a second? Mike Quasney seconded that motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 is a major amendment to a plan development to construct a building for the Pennington County Services that is located north of Kermit Lane, and this would be east of Campbell Street. Some of you may remember that Godfather's Pizza was in that strip mall down along Campbell Street, and this would be back behind it just south of the junkyard that's to the north of this location. The applicants have withdrawn this application. This is no longer a location that's being considered by the county, and so today we are asking that you acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal. However, we do have folks from the neighborhood in the audience today that have asked to speak, and they've been kind enough to share with me some of their concerns. One of them indicated that the publication, as the letter noticed, didn't make it clear that one of the services within the building would be a 24/7. That is classified as a clinic. It's a permitted use. That service has moved around town without much public notice. If the zoning allows the medical facility, in this case, it would have been just a building permit if this property wasn't within a planned development. However, there are many properties in our city that are within a planned development. We can always do better, and if it would help to bring information to the neighborhood as to what those county services would be, we can include that in our title in the letter so that they would know going into it. So we'll get better as we go, but please note that some of the other locations that they're looking at, the zoning would permit it, and it will just be a building permit. So with that, though, I think there are other comments that some want to make.
Yeah, we do have a couple speaker request forms, and I would say please, as I call you up, keep in mind that they have withdrawn the item. Connie Reber is the first. Over to this microphone right over here, and if you could identify yourself once you're up there and ready to talk.
Oh, here. Okay, I'm Connie Reber, and I have the land next to the project Skoll was going to do. Well, the reason I'm really here for is I finally found a letter the other day that I just got, which I've never received before, and it had to do with my husband passed away in September, and I just wanted to, and I'm nervous, he's usually the one who's here, but in this letter it's saying that my husband is the only reason why that Jess Street never went through to hook on to Creek Drive, which that is not true. We tried to cooperate with the city, Skull, everybody. And every time we turn around, they just want us to give, give, give. And finally, when my husband said, no more giving, I know last year we had surveyors all over the place. We don't figure we just have to give them that land for them to put a road in. And when this project started, when he bought that land, I don't know, we've been living there for 35 years. That road, I think a lot of people thought was going in, but it never did happen. And come to find out the other day when I called the city, they said he will never ever have to worry about that road because the 2 plots towards me isn't plotted. Well, I know why, because there's nothing but telephone poles, so he'll never ever have to plot that. So I don't know where they figure that it's our fault that that road's not going through. I don't understand why you never had to do it in the first place. But I just wanted to clear my husband's name up. He tried to cooperate with everybody until he got pushed so far, and he just gave up. He said he's not doing any more for that guy, because we caught him in a little fib. So we did catch him before we ended up with some paperwork. But I just wanted to clear my husband's name up. He is not the reason why that street did not go through. I told the people that live up from me, that have all the land that they bought and everything, that this is not the reason. They had to talk to the city and Skull about this, and don't blame my husband because that road's didn't get it put in. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Dave Jackson.
Hi, my name's Dave Jackson. We own the body shop on Jess Street. We actually built that in 2000. We were told that Jess Street was going to continue on and tie into Creek Drive back in 2000 when we purchased the property. Jim Skull said that was the plan with the city. It was a future plan for development. Basically, the business owners up there and us are concerned that the property has been developed over and over again. There's 4 instances since 2000 that Jim Skull's been able to develop land and sell property up there with no concern with the present traffic conditions that we have trying to get on to Campbell Street from Jess Street. There's several warehouses up there with truck traffic and stuff. There's concerns. I've got a letter or a staff report from June 8th of 2000 stating concerns about the future development without tying Jess Street into Creek Drive and finishing that off. Basically, we found out that, yes, it was a warehouse being proposed that has a clinic. You know, it was defined as a clinic in there. I delved into it a little further and just assumed that it was a 24/7 clinic. At this point, 24/7 clinic, I've got paperwork from the Pennington County on the 24/7 sobriety program that in 2015 there are 575 participants in that program, and that's twice a day that they come in and participate in that clinic. And we just feel that even the proposal of having that put on Kermit Lane, which is a cul-de-sac on a dead-end street, that's way too much traffic, and how the staff could even allow that to be proposed that was going to go through. And the initial paperwork was saying that the staff was going to allow this to go through until I raised some stink with the local landowners and property and business owners. And I don't know what happened, but the sheriff has withdrawn his proposal to have the clinic in that location. And then now Skulls have withdrawn their proposal to build the building. We're just concerned that 18 years we've been told that Jess Street is going to be tied into Creek Drive. The property is adjacent to Creek Drive. There's power line easements. That property is pretty much useless to Mr. Skull. He's developed 4 properties since 2000. And if the properties aren't going to be developed and platted, the street is never going to go through. That's our biggest concern. We purchased property up there, and 18 years ago, we haven't had any use for it, or use of it. We have an unrecorded option on nearly an acre of land just east of our property. We have not been able to use the property for 18 years. And that's our concern, that the street is never going to go through as long as Mr. Skull doesn't have to put the road through or develop Creek Drive.
Well, thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, I don't think we can take any action since the item has been withdrawn, but we appreciate you coming down here and,
Okay,
and
I
letting us know.
would like to bring it to the attention of the city that basically, the plan was to put this through kind of under the radar, and, there's a lot of business owners up there upset about it.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki.
so granted, this item has been withdrawn, but I would like to clarify that there have been ongoing discussions with the current owner of the property regarding the construction of Creek Drive. Street construction, as you folks are aware, is typically triggered when a property is subdivided or platted. In this case, the applicant was not proposing to subdivide. This is a planned development separate from a plat. It's difficult to require infrastructure improvements to that extent as a part of a land use review. However, one of the stipulations of approval was that they enter into an agreement to secure the timing of when that connection to Creek Drive and the construction of Creek Drive would take place. Obviously, that's off the table now since this application has been withdrawn. But we are working with the applicants. They've visited with the city about potential plans that may be coming forward. We anticipate that as we see future plans come forward, and because this area is in a planned development, you will see them too. And we'll continue that conversation and try to have something secured, not only for your review, but for the public's knowledge as well.
Thanks, Vicki. Good information. I think what we are looking to do is acknowledge the withdrawal, though, on this item. Is there a motion to do so? Kurt made the motion to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal. Is there a second? Mike seconded the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Justin?
Even though it's a withdrawal, I'm going to go ahead and abstain from the vote.
You bet. Justin is abstaining from the item. All those in favor of the withdrawal, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Yes, item number 5 is an initial and final plan development for property located at 3645 Sturgis Road. Many of you know that site as the previous Freed's Furniture Store site. The applicant is proposing to renovate that building and revitalize it for reuse. So this is exciting for all of us. And with that, I'd like to show you some slides. An aerial of the property showing the existing building. As many of you know, there was a fire in the northern end of that property, and so it's set empty for some time. It's identified as a mixed-use commercial area. There is arterial street, principal arterial, Sturgis Road, along the north or east lot line, and West Chicago Street is also a principal arterial along the south lot line. Trailview Drive on the opposite side of Sturgis is a commercial street. They're proposing to renovate the site in 2 phases. The existing building sits in here. This is the part that experienced the majority of the fire damage. What they're proposing to do with the eastern portion of the property, this portion, is to provide an indoor archery facility and a child care center. They will also then be renovating the parking within this area, and then there will also continue to be some limited parking on the back side of the property. When they go to do anything else with the structure in phase 2, which might actually have construction where they're removing the building and coming back with new development, that will be a major amendment to this plan development, and you will see that item again. Again, looking at the current or the proposed conditions, currently right now when you're backing into or out of these parking spaces, there's no physical separation between the parking and the right-of-way for Sturgis Road or the pavement section. In fact, the lot line sits right here. They've asked for some exceptions as a part of this plan development, one of them being to back into the right-of-way. The state is bringing forward a project for Sturgis Road in the near future, and they're working with this applicant so that there will be curbing constructed, providing a physical separation between the parking movement and the traffic along Sturgis Road. In addition, they've worked with the state to secure some approaches that will be built into that design that greatly improves what we have today and provides for controlled points of access. The state has also provided a letter clarifying their position, noting that they are okay with the applicant continuing to back into their right-of-way with this new construction project coming forward. As a part of our recommendations for approval, we are supporting that exception, and you'll see that at the end of the report. Signage for the property, the signs all comply with the city sign code. There's no LED signage being proposed. The Black Hills Archery will be accessed from the Sturgis side of the property, and the Child Care Center on the back side will be accessed from Trailview Drive. Again, some pole signage that's being proposed. More signage. This is a part of the layout for the archery. If any of you have been in the Freed's Furniture Store, you saw that there were several levels to that. That does provide for separation between the uses of the Child Care Center and the archery. Plus, they'll have entrances on opposite sides of the building to further separate those uses, removing conflict. Looking at some of the lanes for the indoor archery, storage for the archery. The Child Care Center has an exclusive indoor play area, which is required to have 70 square feet per child versus an outdoor play area. In this vicinity, we would not anticipate an outdoor play area. We have seen other child care centers in commercial areas, and we prefer to see that with an exclusive indoor play area. We do look to see if there's some outdoor green space that the children might be taken to in the vicinity, and as you may be aware, the Game Fish and Park complex is just north of this facility, so that does lend itself so that if the children on a nice day want to play outside, they've got an area that they can go to. Looking at the elevation of the property, the front entrance. This is looking at the back side of the building. I'm sorry, the front side of the building, and then you can see a little bit of Sturgis Road. Looking across the street from Sturgis Road, just gymnastics is located at that site. Looking northeast across Sturgis Road. This is looking south on Sturgis Road. And you can see right now there's no separation, no curbing between the parking area and the pavement section. Looking north on Sturgis Road, and with the project that the state is doing, to have that separation with the curbing significantly increases the safety. Trailview Drive, this is looking south. Looking across the street into the residential area. One of the requirements is that whenever you have a commercial use and it's residential on the adjacent property, that you have a screening fence. However, our regulations also say that you cannot have a 6-foot fence along a lot line, and so if it were lowered to 4 feet, it really doesn't provide much screening. In lieu of that, the applicant is proposing to put a row of evergreen shrubs and trees to provide that year-round separation, which will also bring landscaping to the site. Currently, it's void of that. That will significantly increase the aesthetics of the property. We are in support of that exception to waive that screening fence with the condition that that landscaping be provided along that eastern lot line as proposed. Looking north on Trailview Drive, and again, another view of the backside of the property. The uses as proposed will eliminate the truck traffic at this time from the site. Looking north on Trailview Drive. The other exception that's being requested is to reduce the landscaping that's required from 36,000 points to 13,350 points. As you saw from the site photos, minus a few areas of grass, there isn't much landscaping at all. With the renovation of this site, we are going to see some shrubs, trees, and some revitalized grassed areas, significantly increasing what's there. With the parking that is existing and is needed for the facility, these are the limited areas that they could provide landscaping. Because of the improvement from what it currently exists, we are in support of granting that exception as well. This is a reasonable reuse of an existing commercial structure. There was some concern that this building would sit vacant for some time. So to see the applicants come in and aggressively pursue bringing two vital uses to the property and revitalizing this structure fits in line with the comprehensive plan. Sturgis Road area is a revitalization corridor. There's also a community activity corridor in the future land use plan that falls within the scope of this property, and bringing these uses to the site meets the goals of both of those identifications. So with that, we are recommending to approve the initial and final plan development for the indoor archery and the child care center. It will consist of 30 children with 4 employees. It will be operating from 7:30 to 5 each day, Monday through Friday, closed on weekends. And again, we do have separation of use internal with entrances on opposite sides of the building to remove conflict between the uses. We are recommending to approve with the stipulations noted in the staff report. Any questions? And I know that we've got at least one person from the audience to speak to the item today.
Thanks, Vicki. Mike, do you have a question for Vicki?
Yeah, Vicki, I'm going to address the signage on the back. That's just, it's not a lit sign, or what kind of sign is that on the back side of that
No,
building?
it's not internally or externally lit.
Okay. So that, there's housing on the back side, so that's why I'm asking to make sure that we're addressing any of that so that we don't have bright signs shining onto the neighborhood, so,
Great question, Mike.
okay.
Any other questions for Vicki? Kurt?
Yeah, in regard to the parking and pulling into the DOT right-of-way, I'm sure the applicant is aware, and maybe DOT has told them that, you know, if Sturgis Road ever did widen out, they would lose that. And I think that unless the state has waived that right to, you know, take that away from them, is that, you know, do you have the letter from DOT, and does it stipulate, you know, future expansion of Sturgis Road, should it happen, could encroach into that parking?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So we do have a letter from the state indicating that they are in concurrence with the applicant continuing to use the right-of-way. If in the future there would need to be additional laneage that would remove the movement of backing into that right-of-way, then they would put the city on notice of that as well as the applicant, and we'd have to come back and revisit this plan development, and they would potentially have to seek an exception to put some alternate parking design and potentially reduce the parking. At this time, the state did not foresee that to be an issue and was in concurrence with this project going forward. We would anticipate, though, that there would be communication between the state and the city if that situation should change.
Okay, yeah, as long as it doesn't prevent what they want to do if there's some expansion on Sturgis Road, DOT.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Karen?
Thank you. Just to follow up on the parking issue, when Phase 2 comes in and has whatever is going to be going in there, they'll need parking of some kind. Is there going to be enough parking space for that? That's my question. And I'm approving of this redevelopment. I think it's a great idea. I just am concerned about how we're going to react in the future. And it's maybe more of a thing to put on notice to the applicant that there could be some potential issues there too, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki.
So that's kind of one of the reasons why the applicant is proposing this as a phased project. We are requiring parking be provided as per the parking regulations. Usage, however, sometimes dictates that what's needed for parking is a different number than what's required. It could be that when they come in with Phase 2, it's currently required to have 46 spaces. It may be documented that they only need 32. So there may be some available parking with what's existing, and based on if that structure is removed if it is built back at that north end, are they then also anticipating providing additional parking, et cetera? So again, a part of the reason why it's phased is to see how that's going to be addressed when they identify a future use and whether or not any portion of that building will remain.
Thank you, Mr.
Mike.
Chair. On that parking, to go along with that, is there any benefit to having, instead of straight-in parking, have an angled? Does that reduce some of that problem?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, looks
So-
like Andy might want to chime in, too.
When you do that, then you have to have an ingress and an egress where you've got all the traffic coming in and out one point, because you're pulling in at an angle and you can only go one way. The 90-degree parking allows someone to back out and head either north or south, depending upon what direction, and it separates and kind of diversifies that parking, which may be the better scenario for the volumes of traffic coming out at any one point. But certainly, if the applicant wanted to suggest something else with the state being on board with 2 approach locations, I don't know that there would be any benefit to it.
Okay.
I've got no other lights up, so I'll probably go to the speaker request. Carolyn Troutman?
Thank you. I own a house at 207 North Platte Street. It would be round CD Block 12, Lot 6, and the south 5 feet of Lot 7, Township 2 North, Range 7 East, Section 33. It said I was supposed to say all that, so. But I just give that to you. It's actually the third house down on the west side of North Platte Street. So it got a nice view of the back of Freed's building. Had it for many years, lived there in the late 90s, and I won't miss the garbage truck cycling 5 times to get all the carpet into the back of the truck because it echoed off the back of the building right into the front of my house. So the child youth center, when I saw that, I thought, or the child care center, I'm actually this one. Oh, this is neat. Technology, isn't it great? That's my house. So how to make it clear, or should I just leave it on there? Okay. And when I lived there, in the bottom of this building, which is MG Oil Building, I don't know if they still own it, but in the bottom, Branstad's Foods had a shop and had a lot of trucks going in and out. Don't miss them a whole lot either because they also created a lot of traffic when they cleared out all their outdated sandwiches. Anyway. And Freed's had a lot of truck traffic, but one thing I noted, and I heard her say that this is a commercial street, Trailview, correct? So the traffic flow always came in Trailview, went out Trailview, and didn't come down North Platte. My concern with the child care center is just additional traffic on North Platte Street. Something excellent about living on that street is people only come there that want to be there for a specific purpose. It's not just a joyriding street. People don't just truck through there to truck through there. So if the traffic from the child care center could be encouraged, I assume they probably would because it's shorter to get back out to West Chicago, coming in and going right back out on Trailview. But I'm betting they'll have a tendency at 5 o'clock to go ripping down North Platte Street. And, you know, for people with children, I don't think that that's a good plan, to have 30 cars ripping down North Platte. So that's just my comment. It's not something that would stop the project. I like the use. I think it's a good plan for it. I would like you to encourage the businesses, the child care center, and if the archery range, if they're parking back there, to use Trailview to come in and go out. That's all I have to say. Oh, I will add one more thing. When you go to phase 2, and this is for future planning as well, there is really, really horrible stormwater drainage issues on the northwest end of this building. It washes literally loads of gravel out and down North Platte Street every spring when it rains. I don't know if some of that's been remedied since with the stormwater program, but in the past it's been a huge issue. So for the future, I saw FMG had a plan for stormwater, but I didn't see the plan anywhere, so I didn't get to read it. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate the comments. Good to have some local input.
Thank
Any
you.
further questions or comments on this item? Look for a motion then. Justin. Oh, sorry, Andy. I'm getting too excited to move on with the meeting.
Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. Andrew Skull, Skull Construction, representing, per the application, FHS2 LLC, and henceforth myself. Want to address a couple of the questions that came up in regards to the parking and the signage. In terms of the back of the building, the signage would simply just be a 4x8 sign, and there's no intention for any lit signage back there at this time. One of the things that wasn't addressed by Vicki is the fact that what you would see in the back of the building, there's a large non-conforming metal building attached to the back that will be demolished in order to allow for the appropriate parking in the back. So ultimately, the intention is to make the neighborhood more appealing by the back of the building becoming more appealing by adding landscaping and asphalt parking as well. In terms of the questions regarding the parking, and in terms of the DOT, first and foremost, the DOT there, Kurt, has a 110-foot right-of-way. I've been in direct communication with Stacy Bartlett and Mr. Sigmund here with the DOT. They have not indicated any intentions to utilize or need that right-of-way. It's really been a cooperative effort because they see this as an opportunity in improving public safety by getting rid of a 440-foot approach that is quite dangerous, being able to neck the traffic down to two appropriate access points within the property. And in terms of that cooperation of working together on that, they feel that it is appropriate for now and into the future to allow the backing into the right-of-way to make that essentially legal non-conforming parking in the front of the building. Now, it is not appropriate, the DOT does not allow you to park within the right-of-way, so the question that came up regarding using parallel parking, unfortunately, that is not a scenario that would create much opportunity. Getting back to the width of the right-of-way, from the back of the parking stall to the drive lane on Sturgis Road, there's about already 50 or 60 feet. So there's ample room for lane expansion and still allow for the 26-foot backing up into the property. Karen, and your concern regarding parking, and Vicki did answer this. If you think in terms of the archery shop, their primary business is going to happen probably between 5 and 8 o'clock at night. Monday through Friday, and then probably hours on Saturday, which aren't necessarily in line with any kind of standard business hours. They are open around noon or so on any given day. However, their primary clientele is going to happen in non-traditional working hours. So we would like to establish a traffic pattern and fully understand what that looks like and how that would implicate any other businesses. Are we going to have to be creative with parking here? Absolutely. We have an almost 70-year-old building in a part of town that needs some serious revitalization. And we look at this as an opportunity to clean up the neighborhood for future use and create opportunity for businesses that can't necessarily afford rent in more expensive parts of town. We do not know what's going to happen with the building where the fire was. We're currently undergoing structural analysis of that. That'll really determine what do we do with parking in the future. It appears that the building is salvageable structurally. And so we really have to be creative and understand what the use will be and how we utilize that building and how we address the parking. But until we really understand the structural integrity and those opportunities, it just didn't really make sense to try to address it as a whole project. So we look forward to coming back and being able to revisit with you in those regards in the future. Any other questions that for the applicant that I can answer?
Got Vince and Mike up. Do you have anything?
Yes, I do. And just to clarify something, obviously the archery is not going to use the type of trucks for delivery that have been used for furniture. So is there going to be additional parking available at the back of the building? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, Vicki, you want to help me drive here?
You got a good site photo in here? Let's
Right there.
this one. Grab your pen.
Okay.
Let's do it clear.
The good news for the neighbor is that you'll see a substantial decrease in the amount of deliveries, because at this point in time, for the two uses, the archery shop, simply everything comes in a straight truck, UPS, FedEx. Currently, if you remember in the pictures, there was a metal building. Shit. Yeah, Fletcher's good at this. So anyway, about right here's where that metal building sits. That's the metal building that will be demolished. And so you can see, as we're adding approximately, it must be about 14 parking spaces in the back of here, which primarily will be utilized for the child care center, which would sit on the lower level of this quadrant of the existing building. And the archery center would all be on the upper quadrants, with the exception of the lower quadrant and this portion being allocated for storage. So I think at this point for phase one and what the intended use would be, any traffic along Trailsview Drive would be almost inclusively associated with the child care center, with the primary deliveries for the archery center happening up here on Sturgis Road.
Okay, well, thank you, yes.
Mike Kwasny?
That addresses the problem with the traffic going on Trailview. I think that's a good plan. I really like what you've done. In reference to I wasn't making reference to parallel parking, I was actually angled parking.
Sure.
Just to, I could see where the parallel will not work. But the angle parking, if in the future, if you do have the access points, might give better parking, less usage where cars can get in and out. And
So with that, Mike, I think what it could be utilized in the front along Sturgis Road. That was one of the directions that we did look in terms of doing parallel parking, because we could essentially make more legal parking rather than legal non-conforming. But I think what we'll see is in this back area back here, coming phase two, it gets a little wider, and there is an opportunity for angled parking, to which we could, as you see, we're kind of single stacked right now, which isn't very efficient use of asphalt, nor is it of parking space. But I think that as we go into phase two, we'll be able to have angled parking that would allow double stacked in the back there and still achieve the landscaping that we hope to have to create good separation from the neighborhood.
it's a great plan. I like it, so I'm going to vote for it. But I think that the parking is being addressed, so thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt?
Yeah, just back on parking, I see in the staff report that it shows 14 parking spots, and I assume that's the 14 in the back. How many non-conforming are up on that Sturgis Road side then?
32.
32 up there. So you would meet the parking requirements if you could allow those.
Yeah, so essentially, I think per the plan, it was about 46 parking spots were required. So with the 32 allowed along the frontage of there, plus the 14, it gets to where we need to be. And we have to remember that this is a 70-year-old building, and so we have to get unique in our responses. We have to get unique and creative in how we're going to address to allow this area to continue to be used. Otherwise, you're basically looking at a unusable parcel of land that would be tore down, and who knows what it would be.
Yeah, and I think it's a good use of that building. I'd rather see something get put in there than it become a warehouse or something. So, when I see 14 spots and the requirement is 46, it raises a red flag. But if we can count those, the non-conforming spots, it gets us a lot closer. So I'd be in support of this.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicki?
so they are providing 46 parking spaces on the property. If you grant the exception to allow the 32 along Sturgis Road to back into the right-of-way, then they become legal. So with that exception, they will have legal parking providing 46 spaces.
Don't have any other lights up. Justin, do you?
I'm going to abstain from this vote, too.
Okay, Justin is abstaining from this item as well. Any other questions, comments on this one? If not, I'd look for a motion. Mike Kwasny made the motion to approve this item per stipulations. And Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion items, staff items today? All right. Look for a motion to adjourn then. Mike made the motion to adjourn, and Mike seconded the motion. Mike G, Mike Q. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.